Hi there, I'm Black Bright and I'm on a roll today. Yeah, thank you for subscribing, thank you for sharing, thank you for liking. Yeah, and I just appreciate your little notes and your messages and your emails. I love it. So, and I appreciate all the comments, good and bad, the challenging and the not so challenging, but yes, it's all a part, it goes with the territory. Now today I wanted to talk about Tiger Woods. The fact that he's being sued by the parents of a man, a 24-year-old man, who died drunk after leaving Tiger Woods' Jupiter restaurant where he worked. Now this happened in December, but the outcome of them suing has just come out. Now I have a couple of questions because number one, I couldn't find anywhere where it said how long he'd been working for the Jupiter restaurant, because it's really important. It's important that we know how long he was working there. Number two, they said he goes to Alcoholics Anonymous. He's a alcoholic, and they reckon Tiger Woods knew and his girlfriend knew, so they're suing Tiger Woods, his girlfriend, and the restaurant. Now, what I don't understand is he was employed as a bartender, and surely it doesn't say how long he was there for, but we know it's weeks. We know it's a minimum of weeks, but it doesn't say how long he was there for, which to me is integral to finding out whether or not he worked there for months, for years, or whatever it was, and was able to be a bartender without succumbing to his habit, and that he behaved responsibly. Now, I believe that if he was there working as a bartender, his parents knew he was there as a bartender, and to be honest, they should have intervened. They shouldn't have waited for the accident to happen. They should have said to their son, listen, I don't think it's wise for you to be working as a bartender when you have a drinking problem. But oh no, they didn't do that. They wait until the worst happens. He's drinking with Tiger Woods apparently, not on the same night. That's another thing. He wasn't drinking with them on the same night. He was drinking with them a few nights before. And they reckon that he was serving them, Tiger was serving him drinks. And apparently, according to the Daily Mail, you know what they're like, he was plying him with drinks. Now, the point is that, you get people, we know that pubs and bars, or whatever they call them, have a responsibility to their patrons, that if they see them drinking too much, they should really say, listen, how are you getting home? But they're not going to do that with a lot of strangers. Maybe if they're regulars, they might say something. But I don't see how they can do that with somebody who is not a regular. Anyway, this doesn't really apply in this particular instance because he was an employee. He was an employee of the restaurant. Now, what apparently has happened now is that he was drinking that night. I don't know if that's the same night he was drinking with Tiger Woods and some other guys, but apparently they were drinking heavily until goodness knows when. He jumps in his car, crashes his 1999 Corvette and dies. His parents now have come up with, have now decided that they're going to sue him. Now, I've written some stuff down because the law in America is totally different to the law in the UK. In the UK, yes, they do have a responsibility, but I think there's been 3 prosecutions. Let me not rely on memory. Sorry about this, but you know me. You should know me by now. And another thing I was going to say before I start reading this is that when police stop drivers who've been under the influence and they take them in, that's the responsibility of the driver. So I don't understand how, for one aspect, it's the responsibility of the driver, and then in another aspect, it's the responsibility of the pub owner. Could it be because the pub owner is rich, perhaps? Because I doubt very much if it was a little pub down the road that they'd be going trying to sue them. That's just something I'm just throwing in there, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of prosecutions with regard to, well, the prosecutions of the pub owner or dram bar or whatever they want to call it. Successful prosecutions. Anyway, let me get back to this. Now it said, did the bar staff owe Nicholas, his name's Nicholas, what's his name again? Nicholas Immersberger. He's 24 years old. Died driving while intoxicated. Now, did the bar staff owe Nicholas a duty of care? Apparently, it's illegal for you to be served if you are deemed drunk. Now, the John Moore University in Liverpool, this is, by the way, this is off the side, they did a experiment, a study, and they had actors going into all these pubs as drunk as anything, and the bartenders were still serving them. I mean, admittedly, they were pretending they were drunk, but they were pretty convincing actors, and they were still being served. And they reckon 78% during the week, they're likely to be served while drunk. Over the weekend, on the Friday, so it's 96%, where they're likely to be served while drunk. And on a Saturday, it's 98% that are likely to be served drunk. That's a by the side until I find what I'm looking for. 3 prosecutions. In fact, in 2010, there were recorded to be just 3 prosecutions in total during the entire year, which means prosecutions are selective and victims only. No, that's not really. That's by the side. I'm not even going to say that. It says, who is responsible? One of the biggest deterrents for police enforcing the law is that when working a regular evening pub, bar and club staff will often meet hundreds of clients, working to time pressures to serve everyone, waiting, while they are likely to not serve a customer if they are clearly struggling to use their cognitive functions. It is hard to judge on just ordering a drink how drunk a customer is. Even if it came to light that the intoxicated patron had started, they intended to drive home while drunk due to the handling a large number of clients in a night, it is not expected that a member of the bar staff owes that person a duty of care to stop them making a foolish mistake. Now, this is UK law. Occupiers' liability. Duty of care is a part of the law which can be disputed on a personal or professional basis. Do people nearby owe you a duty of care to help you avoid injury? Do professionals providing you a service owe a duty of care to protect you? See, there's a lot of things that come into play here. When inside premises owned by another person, they are responsible for the safety of those inside and should take all precautions to keep those inside safe. And I guess, sometimes, when you go to the toilet and they're cleaning up and they put those little yellow signs around to make sure nobody slips and falls, and you get big signs. And I mean, even in the road they have those cordon things. So to a degree, they do have a responsibility while you're on the premises, but do they have a responsibility once you've left the premises? There's a Court of Appeal in Joy versus Newell, trading as the Copper Room in 2000. In this case, an intoxicated individual entered a pub, bought a drink, took a few sips and then fell off the bar stool. sustaining severe injuries, leaving him quadriplegic. In this particular case, it was suggested that the barman, rather than allow the customer to sit on a normal bar stool, should have placed him in a low chair, from which he was less likely to fall. The trial judge dismissed the customer's action, and he appealed to the Court of Appeal. In dismissing the appeal, it was held that a landlord of licensed premises would ordinarily expect his customers to regulate their own consumption of alcohol. Now, if Nicholas Immersberger, who's going to Alcoholics Anonymous and is known for drinking too much, he wouldn't be able to regulate his own habits. But there again, how did he regulate it while he was a bartender? Does that mean he was a recovering alcoholic? Or does it mean that he was able to discipline himself while on the job? These are key factors, because I doubt very much if what's his name? Tiger. If you saw him falling all over the place behind the bar, he's not going to allow him to serve customers. So he must have exercised some discipline while behind the bar. Whilst it is a criminal offence for a landlord to serve more drink to an already intoxicated person, it would not be just, fair or reasonable to regard him as having assumed responsibility for their safety, even in circumstances where he knew they were already or might, if served with more drink, become so intoxicated as to be incapable of taking reasonable care of themselves. It seems therefore that in the scenario painted above, the licensee owes no duty of care to the driver. Now this is UK. In a situation where a driver has entered an empty pub and become highly intoxicated, and then had tried to leave and drive, the situation might be different, and the landlord may, in these extreme circumstances, be held liable. So it looks as though if there's a lot of people, the landlord of the pub or whatever cannot be held responsible because he cannot identify who's drinking what and what level. But if there's only one person, and it's very obvious, and in this case you could say that since Immersberger was one person and they were drinking after hours, after his shift, it was obvious that he was drunk, and therefore Tiger could be liable. That's what I'm reading from this. But you know, with law, it's not straightforward. There's always loopholes. Apparently, which institute is this? The British Institute of Innkeeping. They say operators and staff of licensed premises not only have the influence, but an obligation under the licensing objectives to prevent crime and disorder and promote public safety. Now, in America, they have something called dram case law, dram shop liability. And they've got dram shop laws, and one is two categories. One is first party case, and the second one is a third party case. Now, in the first party, this is where the person who's consumed too much alcohol prosecutes the bartender or an establishment that served them to receive compensation for any injuries or damages they have created while under the influence of alcohol. And in America, it appears that many states that have dram shop laws do not allow for prosecution in first-party dram shop cases because there is the presumption that individuals should be responsible for how much alcohol they consume. Now, this is American law, so it's very similar to ours, but it just seems a bit selective. That's what I don't like about it. It's not cut and dry. It's almost like they're giving the opportunity wherever they can for them to sue. Anyway, it's a business, isn't it? This also relates to the prosecution of driving under the influence cases, such that individuals who are arrested for driving while under the influence cannot blame the person who served them for allowing them to drink and drive in most states, and cannot escape prosecution for driving under the influence because of the claim that they were not responsible for how much alcohol they consumed. Now that's the first party case under the dram shop case, and the reason why they call it dram is because they used to serve gin in little drams, and so that's why they call it that. But what I don't understand is the parents of the boy who died are using the qualifiers of the third party case, when technically it's a first party case that they should be applying to. So we go to the third party dram shop. I hope this is not too boring. But you know, when we're kind of, I don't know, I should have been I'm not really a lawyer, but I do like to kind of examine stuff. Okay, the third party dram shop case occurs when the intoxicated person causes injury or damage to some other person or third party. Now in this case, he caused damage to himself and died. For instance, a person who is drinking in a bar, visibly intoxicated and impaired, continues to receive alcohol. They then later attempt to drive home and get in an accident. As a result of the accident, the intoxicated person injures some other individual, the third party, and that person sues for damages. So this is third party, and I understand this, but the parents appear and the newspapers and the media are using third party dram shop qualifiers for a first party case. That's I'm not a lawyer, like I've said, but in my limited knowledge, that's what it means. That's what it reads to me. Now, the state that allows third party dram shop cases typically have stipulations on what the third party must prove in court to successfully sue the bartender or establishment. Different states have different standards of evidence that must be achieved, but in general, the third party must, and I'm going to tell you what the third party must do, because these are the qualifiers that the parents are using, and these do not apply to a first party case. Okay, so the third party must prove that the bartender or establishment sold or gave alcohol to the person, demonstrate some relationship between the person's level of